I'm not forgetting to do things. Y'all are forgetting to do things. There we go. There's everything set up. I have not slept again. I'm very good at this thing called living. It's very interesting. Ooh, that's a lot of money. Ooh, that's a long trip, and it's gonna leave me in the middle of nowhere. But that's so much money. That's gonna take me to somewhere new, though. I'll do buttermilk. That money. Oh, that money. Nah, I'll do the buttermilk. Oh, it's literally from right here. Wait, what am I doing? There's no trailer there, because... Wrong way. I can drive. I understand the fundamentals. I'm just very tired. And I know what anyone watching this is probably thinking. Go to bed. I would, but I'm doing this whole thing where, like, I stream every day for this entire month. And if I go to bed now, I ain't getting a stream out today. Other side. How do I get back there? Can I get back there from over here? No. Wait. Yes. Should probably be watching where I'm going. But that, like, takes effort. Especially when I could be watching the mini-map. Okay, there's the trailer. Oh, if I'm a bit gassy, I just finished eating as well, and I kind of scoffed down my food pretty quickly. Which is why I don't eat quickly, is I get really gassy if I do. Yeah, now I get to try and think of things to talk about while being very tired. You know, there's one thing I actually can talk about, because it's basically something I did through the night. So I made mention that I kind of want to do a Fire Emblem series at some point, and I've shit on Fire Emblem Awakening enough that I kind of want to do a series on Awakening, so I can basically shit on it as things happen. But to do that, that means I need to emulate it, because I don't have a 3DS capture card. I own the game, I own a 3DS, but I don't own a modded 3DS, so I can record off of it. Which is an important thing if you want to do anything with a DS, is you kind of need a modded DS so you can capture the footage from. Because Nintendo really did not want people recording off of their DSs. But a big component of Awakening is the Street Pass content. Which is also why I probably won't do Awakening. Because you can get that Street Pass content. You can do it. But you have to hex edit the save to add the content. I've done some programming. I'd never done hex editing before tonight. I never want to do it again. Yeah. It was an experience. I'll just say that. Can't say it's an experience I ever, want to do again, but it was an experience. And I'm kind of glad I did it, because now I kind of know how to hex edit, which is pretty neat. But, yeah, that was annoying. And the program that I used, and thus now know how to use, is only on a free trial. So if I'm gonna do that, I basically have to do it soon. I had Facebook show me, here's how you get through these things. It's like, well, okay, but at the same time, it's a whole thing of like, the guys on the right side, basically you alternate, and it's like, okay, but, alternative, the people in the left lane could just go, and then the people in the right lane could just go, unless traffic is so backed up that, that you just never have time for that. In which case, maybe the road should be widened to include an extra lane. Oh, I need over there. But yeah, I still might do Fire Emblem Awakening. I just want the Street Pass content. Which means I'm gonna have to hex edit, no matter what if I do it. Like, I need to do it. Which is really annoying, because you can only hex edit a save after the save has been made. So basically, I'd have to make the save, get to the point where Street Pass is available, stop, hex edit the save, then I can resume. And honestly, after having read how to do it, it's honestly not that difficult. It's just very intimidating. Because it's effectively just copy-pasting. After finding the exact location in the hex code, and then replacing the exact bits with the right, copy-pasted code. That to get the right, to get it actually displaying right and not just gibberish, you have to copy it from the clipboard as a hex file into a new file, so you can then, paste it from a hex file copy into... It's complicated. Hex edits be weird. Right, I'm already going 35. The funny thing is with, like, miles per hour like this, is like, I know a lot of Americans would look at the speed I'm going, of being like 56 in a 35, and be like, see, this is why a mile per hour are better, because, you know, 35 is 35. It's like, yeah, but see, in kilometers an hour, that would have just been a 50 zone. Same with right now, rather than 105, we would just go 100. Plus, you know, our units of speed can actually be divided into smaller units without completely changing the unit. Because, you know, a kilometer is 1,000 meters. Unlike miles, where 1 mile is like 50 cheeseburgers. I don't know. I don't even think Americans truly know. It's just a mile's a mile. It's like, yeah, but what if you need less than 1 mile? Well, then it's a quarter of a mile. It's like, no, that doesn't work. That's not a unit. That's just words. Like, and I know that's something that, like, probably doesn't make a huge amount of sense to someone who may not get it, but like, you could say a quarter of a meter, and that's still a measurement. That's still a thing. That's 250 centimeters. Yes, centimeters is a step below. So, like, that works, but given there is no smaller unit to miles, you cannot divide a mile and have it still be a unit of measurement. Because there is no unit for a quarter of a mile. Not without completely changing the unit of measurement. Because I'm sure you could probably turn it into feet, or yards, or fathoms. But it doesn't change the fact that you're now literally changing the unit of measurement because the one you were using doesn't work anymore. That's literally the point of the metric system. Is so that, you know, you don't have to change the unit. If you're doing a measure, if you're like measuring something like speed in metric, you just measure it. The unit stays the same. Which is also why science is metric and not imperial. And also why, if you really want to cook well, like cook recipes and have them be really good, you kind of need to use metric and weigh things in grams, which once again fall into the same camp as, why is everything here so... Why? Speed! Jesus Christ! It's a stoplight, that's why. Well, we're gonna be here for a while. But like with grams, there's a whole lot of sizings of grams. You have milligrams, kilograms. Lots of grams. And then you get the mysterious cup. Whose cup was that? That's what I want to know. Because almost every measuring cup you get that measures in cups will hold ever so slightly a different amount. It's clearly not standard. I'll stop rambling about this stuff now. Ultimately, it really just doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm gonna go slower because I kind of want those trucks ahead of me to get further ahead of me, so I don't have to deal with them. It's not happening. Hey, I'm turning. That'll be nice. Look at this big old convoy of trucks. Now I get to wait. I almost feel like I should put on different background music. I always feel a bit bad using DJ the S. Though, as I've made mention of, like, if he ever, like, discovers I've been using his music and he does not like me using it, I am perfectly fine not using it ever again. I'm not gonna hold it against him either. Like, it's his hard work. Like, if you're on the YouTube, you can actually find a link to his channel in my description. The Twitch, having it there all the time doesn't make sense for the Twitch, because I don't always use his stuff there, but on YouTube, like, the videos are still there all the time. So I can just leave it in the description on YouTube. But there is a link to the YouTube on Twitch, so... He makes great music, as you can hear. Well, you may not actually be able to hear very well, but that's kind of by design. I don't want the music to be too overpowering. I may just start using various, like, OSTs that I really like. Might just try and compile a playlist. of just like various video game OSTs that I don't think will get copyright striked. That's the main reason why I use DJDS, is I don't deal with copyright with his stuff. Like, there was one occasion that I had the in-game radio turned on for, I think it was actually American Truck. That stream has something like 200 copyright claims and is banned in every conceivable country around the world. Because of the radio. And honestly, a lot of the copyright claims I was getting, and like, I'm glad they weren't strikes, but a lot of the copyright claims I was getting were for the ads. It was the ads being played on the radio that were really coming after me for money. Okay, I can make this trip on this tank of gas. I don't need to fuel. I was just saying, man, I should get some fuel, but I don't need to. So I can literally make the trip on what I got. Expect that a lot. Me yawning. I know one thing I want to do, thinking of Fire Emblem again. If I do Awakening, I want to avoid using the gimmicky mechanic of pairing up. And, like, I know that's most of the point of the game, but it's so gimmicky, and it's so absurdly overpowered. Like, yes, let's just give the player the ability to have their units, sure, but have possibly 8 attacks happen on a single attack, and have it be very likely that the player takes no damage. Like, that's something, when Awakening came out, I was actually doing a vlog series at the time. And that is something that legitimately annoyed me, laying Awakening, to the point where I eventually just had to take a break from playing because it annoyed me that much. Because I had used the pair system, because, you know, initially it seemed like a neat idea. And then I started to realize just how broken it was. Like, I wouldn't have minded the pair mechanic if it had initially worked closer to Fate's, but with some tweaks. Here's effectively what I would have done to the pair mechanic in Fire Emblem Awakening. Throw it out. Now, if we're going to keep it, when paired together, that is when blocking happens. So you give up half of your units for basically a unit to block. The unit who blocks the attack should take 25% of the damage that unit would have taken. That way it's not just a complete tink immune to an attack that would have literally one-shot that character, even if it was, you know, only 25% of the damage. There is no reason why, you know, little level 1 villager should be able to tink immune an attack literally from the final boss of the game. Like, the pair mechanic is broken in that way. And then for aiding in attacks, the unit should have to have a ranged weapon and not be paired and be standing next to the unit that is doing the attacking. So, for instance, you could have someone with a javelin standing next to your person attacking, and they have a chance to help attack. If that person with the javelin is instead holding an iron spear, they can't help attack anymore because they're too far away. Like, I feel that's a fairly reasonable system. It gives use to the ranged weapons. Because, let's be real, who actually uses ranged weapons? Outside of, like, spell tomes, who really uses ranged weapons in Fire Emblem? Like, honestly, if anyone's watching this that actually actively uses the ranged weapons, I would actually be quite interested to know why. Because there's no real use to it. If you're in a situation where you absolutely need that extra couple points of damage, you really should have just had higher level party members. Every Fire Emblem game has had a way to level grind, and what that says is you've used too many different characters, and you've not level grinded them to keep them all caught up with where they should be. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that issue. Like, even replaying Awakening on, like, hard. Hello! The name is familiar. I know you. Anissa. 90% sure. I'm also very tired, so I apologize that took a moment. How have you been? That's good to hear. Man, YouTube's chat is really delayed. At least getting into Restream. I've been alright. A lot of ups and downs mentally, but that's normal for me. Like, even right now, I am awake because of insomnia, which caused a minor... I don't even know what to call it. My brain was fighting against me earlier. Bout of self-doubt. There we go. That's a good way to put it. Nothing new, me having problems with my mental state. I mean, gestures to basically the entire year I didn't stream. Intrusive thoughts are a bitch. I'm doing my best to stream every day this month, and then I'm gonna try to carry that momentum into later months. I'll probably need to actually move to, like, a less than everyday schedule, but, like, I want to prove to myself I can still do this. Because, like, I used to stream all the time. And then depression hit me like a dump truck. And, yeah. Alrighty. That man is pickaxing the road, and he just threw his pickaxe away. Clearly he's about to quit. I can't blame him. They have him pickaxing the road. I should finish the thought I was working on. But I don't fully remember what point I was even going for. Right, the ranged weapons in Fire Emblem. And that with my latest save of Awakening, I've still not ever had a case where I've actually wanted the ranged weapon. Like, I have them on multiple characters, I just never use them unless I want to deal less damage. That has so far been the only reason I've ever used them. I should really get into the... Well, no. I should wait till I'm past this truck to get into the right lane. Otherwise, I am going to be stuck behind truck and have to slow down or come back into the left lane anyway. I am officially that truck right now. Though, to be fair, speed limit's 65 anyway. Yep, thank you, YouTube. YouTube is being that guy right now. Safely pause here. Let me get this going again. Yes, I am still watching YouTube. Clearly YouTube does not understand the concept of music. Though, thinking of YouTube, it's actually something I feel like I should mention, because I've been a big proponent of ad blockers, and I still am. YouTube, it seems, is taking a stance against them. As in, they're literally going to try blocking you from accessing their website if you're using an ad blocker. Which sucks for obvious reasons. And I don't understand the logic. Like, obviously YouTube wants to make money. It's what YouTube does. It makes money. It's a business. But based on all of the research I have found, from surveys, from, you know, just straight analytics, from the ad blockers themselves. Man, thanks for following on here, Anissa. From all the analytics I can find on ad blockers, shows that roughly anywhere between 11 and 35% of people who use the internet use an ad blocker. I can guarantee you not all of those people also use YouTube. Thus, YouTube going out of their way to try to block ad blockers is a bit redundant. They're literally making people that aren't likely to click on ads in the first place. If you're using an ad blocker, ads are probably not something you care about. Thus, you know, forcing you to look at ads, all that's going to do is make you not want to return to the platform. Which might actually be YouTube's plan. Maybe they want these people off their platform. I don't know. It ain't gonna stop me. I might just stop watching things on YouTube, but I'm gonna keep streaming on it. But, like, it's even revenue-wise, it doesn't make sense that they want to block ad blockers because, like, okay, 2021, YouTube ad revenue brought in almost $22 billion. Even if you take, oh, I need to be way over here. Even if you take half of that away, because the ad the YouTube ad split of 55 to 45, which you could just average to 50-50, because both 5% of that they definitely get to keep, because, well, not all content with ads is a partner. That still means YouTube itself in 2021 brought in $11 billion from YouTube ads. So blocking ad blockers, and thus adding maybe $1,000 more to that, like, YouTube has now made basically $11 billion and some pennies, effectively. Like, it's not even gonna make a difference in their revenue to ban ad blockers. I mean, there are people like myself who use ad blockers basically for internet security. Because here's a fun thing that if you've been on the internet long enough, you know can happen, because it was a lot more prevalent when I was a youngin'. Malware can be embedded in advertisements. You can literally get a virus from an ad. Like... And while Google would like to claim that that doesn't happen through Google's ads, it does. It most certainly does. I'm honestly just waiting for YouTube to actually fully implement that change and not just do it as a 1% test, which is what they're currently doing, just to see how quickly people do get around it. Because the only block like that I've ever seen that's effective wasn't so much a block, it's what Twitch does, which is basically embed their ads into the content you're watching, so you literally can't block it. That's why it's really difficult to block ads on Twitch. I won't say impossible, I'm sure some ad blocker can do it, but it is absurdly difficult. That is why I don't watch streams on Twitch. I still stream on here, but I don't watch things on Twitch. Oh boy, more road work. That's how I know I'm in America. There's road work everywhere. That man is leaf blowing the gravel. Whoa. Whoa. Truck, why did you just do that? My truck just turned all on its own. That's weird. I think my controller momentarily lost connection to the computer. Which is kind of the problem with Bluetooth. Because, like, I could have this thing plugged in, but, like... Then I have to actually care about the cord. Like, this I don't have to. I'm very lazy. This is really itchy. So I get tired. Man, I'm already going 105. Well, technically 106, but I have 105. It's close enough, right? I've got a lot of ideas for things I want to actually do with the stream this year, actually. It's just I need to get around to actually doing a lot of them. I mean, one is just I kind of want to do a stream playthrough of just a Fire Emblem game. I just need to decide what Fire Emblem game. Which is kind of the hard part, because there's a lot of them. And they're all good until Awakening. And then they just kind of go downhill very quickly. Like, Awakening... I know everyone says it saved the series. Because, oh man, it's casual feature, and it's, you know, it's a 3DS game. It's like, yep, any new Fire Emblem would have, quote-unquote, saved the series. Like, they just needed a new game. It didn't need to be Awakening. Literally, had they marketed Shadow Dragon on the regular DS, it probably would have had far better sales than it did, but they really didn't market it. They kind of set it up to fail. Please, Berlin, yep. Calling me fat. I mean, they're not wrong, but it's very rude. Weigh my milk. Out of context, that probably sounds very weird, but I'm carrying buttermilk. Like, Fire Emblem Fates has the terrible pairing mechanic. Reclassing down to level 1 anytime you want, but keeping all of your stat growths. Basically meaning that by the moment you have the ability to, you can basically max out the stats of every character you want to use. Like, completely max them out. It takes grinding, but you can do it. And you get Fates, which keeps basically all of those problems, but adds in another problem of weapons no longer having durability, thus literally removing part of the resource management of Fire Emblem, which is managing your money so that you don't run out and can, you know, keep everyone equipped and fighting. Echoes, it feels wrong to criticize because a lot of its problems are because it's trying to be a faithful recreation of a SNES game. Might even be an NES game. I don't remember which it is. But it has a lot of problems. Chief among those being that, the game doesn't seem to tell you what damage you're about to deal. You kind of have to math that out yourself, which can get really annoying when you actually care about what damage you're dealing in a Fire Emblem game, is when you're literally trying to figure out your next course of action. Basically, okay, if I have this person attack this, and then this person attack them, will that kill the unit? because not only do you have to figure that out, but also you have to figure out how much damage you're doing in the first place. Three Houses has the issue of, well, unless you basically read up ahead of time, you're not going to be able to recruit everybody, because if you don't get the right relations beforehand, you can't recruit them, period. Like, which once again is just one of those things of like, that's not Fire Emblem. And I can't speak for the newest game because I haven't played it. I want it, because as much as I have problems with Three Houses, I still kind of enjoyed what I played of it. It's actually a lot of basically tactical games that I want to do. Because I also want to do at some point Heroes of Might and Magic. I still don't... Like, I'm very much one that, like, yeah, sure, I'll stream whatever I want to. And, like, I usually don't care if people watch or not. But I usually have the thought of, well, somebody will probably like watching this. Whether that somebody shows up or not, you know, usually I can, okay, somebody will like this. I don't know anybody would actually like watching Heroes of Might and Magic gameplay. It's so slow. Which is kind of what I like about it. It is slow. It's grand strategy on a... It's grand strategy on a smaller scale, but also bigger scale at the same time. Which, you know, is pretty neat. It's what I like in games. A lot of strategy. Big scale, but not so big that it's just frustrating. One thing that I will always love about Heroes of Might and Magic, and I wish more strategy games would do this, like when they're turn-based strategy. Heroes of Might and Magic, at least I don't remember with six and 7 if they had this or not, but at least 5 and earlier had hot seat mode for multiplayer, which basically meant you all played on the same computer with the same mouse, and you just kind of passed the mouse around or got up out of the chair. It's usually what we would do, is get up out of the chair so we weren't watching what the other person was doing, because, I mean, that is a bit kind of cheaty. But, like, it meant that me and my older brothers could all play the game together, instead of only one of us being able to play. You cannot stop me. Really, YouTube? Oh, this might actually stop me. Yeah. Ow. I mean, I got through. My trailer's fine. YouTube has paused again. YouTube, it's not even been 10 minutes. Stop it. Jeez. I'm like, I know I could buy YouTube Red, and that would that would allow me to play music without it pausing on me. But here's the thing: if I had that kind of money, which is basically $12 Canadian a month, there are many other things I could put that money towards that I would much rather put that money towards. I mean, one thing, as much as I've had problems with the game, if I had that kind of disposable income of, that $12 a month, add about $3 more a month to that, and that's a Final Fantasy XIV subscription. And that's a lot more for your money. So if I had that kind of money and I had to spend it, I would get new computer equipment on a payment plan. But if I had to spend it on a service, it would probably be Final Fantasy XIV or EVE Online. But probably 14. Because I haven't played the shit out of 14 yet. And I don't know if I ever will. Like, as I've said many multiples of times, I have had times with 14 where I have had fun. They're not consistent. And honestly, the times I haven't had fun generally have outweighed the times I have had fun. But that may just be from A Realm Reborn. Because, like, A Realm Reborn is bad. And, like, I know there are people who would fight with me on that. I literally know somebody who fights me on that a lot. That, oh no, Realm Reborn's really good, you just have to care about story. It's like, yeah. See, the thing is, I do care about story in games. That's why I don't like A Realm Reborn. It's because very little of A Realm Reborn is story. But then when bringing that up to said person, it then changes from, you have to like story, to, oh, well, A Realm Reborn is world building. Except it really isn't. Very little of A Realm Reborn is world building. A lot of A Realm Reborn is padding. Pointless, mindless padding. The sole purpose of keeping you playing and paying money for longer. Like, of what I've played of A Realm Reborn, probably around 20 hours of it has been padding and traveling. Easily. It's actually probably been more than that, but I'm being generous and just saying 20 hours. I've only played almost, I think I've played about 70 hours at this point. So, like, basically a third of my time in that game could have been just completely ignored. I mean, that's kind of the thing with subscription-based games. They want you continuing to play. because the more you play, the more money they make. And, well, they want to make money. But that's also kind of the insidious thing about subscription-based games, is that they will pad out the game to basically force you to play longer and more, and after they have you hooked for 2 or 3 subscriptions, well, now you're more likely to not want to quit because you're invested monetarily, not a small amount, into the game. I mean, just using even 14 as an example, after 3 months, you have spent basically about $45 on the game. Just for the privilege of playing it, on top of your basically $20 initial investment and your $60 expansion investment. So at that point, you're already closing in on $200 spent on one game. And like, sure, the free trial exists. It's there and people can use it. But honestly, how many people do you think actually use the free trial? Because I would be fully willing to bet not many. Mostly because of just, like, how difficult the free trial is to get to. Sure, I imagine if you go through their website, it's easier to get your hands on. Though even there, it's probably still a hassle, and that's by design. They don't want you investing into the free trial. They want you buying the base game, buying the expansions, and then paying for the 2 to 3 subs just to get through a Realm Reborn. Because, you know, not many people who actually have money play games as much as someone who doesn't. Like, that's something that that will always bother me about any subscription-based game, be it World of Warcraft, EVE Online, Final Fantasy XIV. They all design themselves to basically pad out things, to slow you down, to eat your money. And with a Realm Reborn, I can kind of understand it. And that's only because I know the context of how that game came to be. That doesn't excuse the padding, that just explains it. Like, the fact that they basically had to panic and rebuild the game basically goes to show that, yeah, they had to fill it with padding because they didn't have endgame content yet. But maybe they should have just built a competent MMO in the first place. Or, rather than panicking, shutting down the original 14 and launching a Realm Reborn, They should have left the original 14 running and made a new game from the ground up that's new, instead of reusing the same engine, a lot of the same assets, from what I can gather, a lot of the spaghetti code, and ultimately making a kind of mediocre MMO that could have been better. But, and as I always will have to say, my opinion is based solely on A Realm Reborn, because that is all I have played. I cannot base my opinion off of content I have not experienced. And I don't watch Final Fantasy XIV content. I have not played past what I have played. So, I have literally zero opinion on anything past A Realm Reborn. Based on what I have played of A Realm Reborn, it's free-to-play quality from 2008 to 2010. It's not good. And, like, even when the game tries to do plot, it falls on its face. Mostly because it resolves things too quickly. Like, case in point, what's her name? Blue Lady Axe. Moonbreeder, that's her name. Moonbreeder. She was in the story for like an hour before they killed her off. She had like 5 cutscenes, and one of those was her dying. Like, and this was supposed to be a big emotional moment, but it wasn't, because the player doesn't even know her. She's just there, and then she's dead. Now imagine if instead of suddenly adding her about an hour before killing her off, if maybe, just maybe, now hear me out, this is a wild, crazy thought, she had been introduced at the beginning of the game. And I hear you barking, big dog, but she probably wasn't even designed then. Great. So don't make a custom model for the character then. It would not be the first time they had a character model, or a character, that basically just didn't matter. Like, well, that had a model that didn't matter, but was important. Hey, this is taking me somewhere new. It's not great money, but neither of these jobs are. Yeah, they're all from this place. You know, I may as well grab the job and then fuel. Oh, they aren't both from the same place. But, like, that's just an easy example of them basically rushing something. Which, honestly, it feels like Square had a moment where they're like, shit, we have this cool idea, but, like, a character needs to die for it to work. Who are we gonna kill off? We can't kill off any of the main cast. Quick, add a character! Quick, Dave, make a new model. We need someone to kill off. To which Dave's response was probably, why don't we just use a generic model instead of making a whole new model? To which Dave was probably told to shut up. He's not paid to think. He's paid to make models. You wanna enter? Well, I'm entering. So I need fuel. Ain't no way I'm making this trip on the fuel I got. This is gonna be a big fuel bill. $1,253 on fuel. Come on, truck. Come on, trailer. What are you even stuck on? Nothing, that's what. I mean, like, if they really wanted the callback to her later, because from the wiki, she apparently does show up again at, like, basically one point. They literally, like, especially with what they did, which is basically they had her weapon show up again. They could have just had the artist make the weapon. Like, I feel bad for whatever artist or team of artists made that character model, because, like, it just was immediately killed off. Like, it almost makes me feel like whatever 3D artist, like 3D modeler made that model, like whatever artist made that model, just quit from Square Enix shortly after making it. And they just held a vendetta and decided to kill the character off. Like, that is the only thing I can think of. Mostly because that just kind of happens. Like, there's multiple NPCs from RuneScape that have basically been killed off just because the moderator, like the employee who made them, quit or was fired. So basically everything that person did relating to the game gets removed in some way. It's No matter whether the fans liked whatever it was or not. Like... But, like, another thing that just kind of happened way too fast was, Thancred's possession. Like, we basically had the revelation that, oh man, he's possessed, and then, like, 2 big story quests later, he's free again. And that's in the base game. So, like, they had that planned. There's no way they didn't. And, like, I know it was a bit longer than that, but, like... That feels like the kind of thing that they were setting up for the first expansion. And that's when I first encountered that. After I got past the, oh, okay, he wasn't actually evil this whole time. He's just an asshole. When I first saw that and got past that thought, was basically the thought of, oh, so rescuing him is going to be the point of Heavensward. Nope. Nope, not at all. Because, you know, why would it be? It's only what it felt like they were initially planning on, and then clearly changed their mind in the time it took them to develop A Realm Reborn. Like, there's so many things they could have done that would have been kind of cool. But Square just didn't do them. And I can't even say it's because they'd never made an MMO before, because they had. They've made Final Fantasy XI, which from everything I've heard is a really good game. From some of the things I've heard, it's better than 14. Quite honestly, if it had a free trial, I'd probably give it a go. But it's a subscription-based MMO too, only it doesn't have a free trial, and you have to pay money to play, and yeah, I can't be bothered. If I had the extra income, I might give it a shot, but I don't, so... I mean, I soon will, but at the same time, I just... I don't want to bother. I might look up some content, see if the MMO looks good. Because, I mean, if 11 looks good, I might actually give it a go. Though at this point, who knows how much longer Square is even going to keep 11 going. Though 11 is still making the money, so I doubt they're going to stop it anytime soon. I mean, from a lot of the things I have heard about 11, it is... Did YouTube just do that again? No, it didn't. Okay. I thought it did. I was about to get really annoyed with YouTube. Like, a lot of things I've heard about 11, it just sounds so much better. Even if it's not better in the story department, gameplay is what matters at the end of the day. Like, At the end of the day, especially given it's a subscription-based MMO, so you're paying to play it. If all it is a story, then you can get the experience of playing it by watching someone else. Like, it needs to have gameplay, good gameplay, to be worth actually putting money into. And when it comes to 14, like, it's had its moments where the gameplay was fun. Blue Mage comes to mind. Blue Mage was pretty fun. I need to get back to my Blue Mage, but I want to get to Astrologer first. Which I am getting really close to. And I know I've said that a lot, but this time I'm slightly more confident. Not wholly, because Lord knows the game will probably throw another wall of quests in the way, because heaven forbid I'm just allowed to progress. I finally go fast. I can finally go fast! Heck yeah! Going fast! I'm not gonna go terribly too fast, because I know my limit's gonna drop again. So I'm only gonna go up to 105, but I might as well stop at 100. That's my highway speed. But, like, there's been so many just dropped balls with A Realm Reborn. And just a lot of annoyances put in the way. Like, the pacing is just kind of bad and all over the place. Sometimes you'll go many hours between a relevant story moment, and other times they'll just happen one after another, after another, after another, after another, just barraging you. As if Square in playtesting was like, oh shit, we haven't given the player a story quest in a while that, you know, actually has story to it. It's just been like comic relief stuff for a while, or just boring things that don't matter in the slightest and that will never matter again. Quick, bombard them with all of the story quests they could have been doing at this point. I mean, like, the very end of just before the credit sequence for A Realm Reborn, that was probably the best, like, quick bombard them, you could really draw upon. Yawning. Because, like, literally, how the game got to the credit sequence, which I foolishly thought was the end of A Realm Reborn. Shows how naive I am. Leading up to that credit sequence was 2 raid fights and 2 dungeons that realistically could have been combined into 2 dungeons. Like, the boss fights could have just been the end of the dungeon. But because they had gotten to the end of A Realm Reborn, and had decided at that point, ah, shit, we're gonna kill off all of these villains. Shit, we gotta have the player fight them all now. You had to fight literally all of them. Like, what? I thought, once again, shows how naive I am. I had thought that, you know, the big empire, and I doubt any of those people are actually dead. Well, at the very least, I doubt the main dude is actually dead. But like, I had thought that as we closed in on the end of the game, we would start fighting the main dudes, like the main villains of A Realm Reborn, the Empire guys, the big, like, officers, one at a time, spaced out, probably, between multiple quests. Which I know probably sounds a bit weird, given I was basically just complaining about, you know, how there's large swaths of the game where there's nothing to do, and here's a part of the game where there's everything to do. It's like, yeah, but see, that's the problem. Like, this stuff could have been spaced out. Like, let's give an example. Shield guy. I don't remember his name. I don't remember any of their names, because their names aren't important. Let's be real. Aside from crazy dude just got pulled into a portal. Nero, I think. I don't know. Aside from, like, him, they're all out of the story now. Their names were irrelevant. They were mini bosses, basically. Though even calling them that in a Final Fantasy context is an insult to mini-bosses. Because in the best Final Fantasy games, you remember a lot of the mini-bosses. Like Ultros. You remember Ultros. And the Ultros Boogie. Because, you know, they have character. They're not just evil for the sake of being evil. They have character to them. Now, that can't be said for every mini-boss in a Final Fantasy game. Some of them, the mini-bosses, are just dull and boring. But that's far from a constant. But, like, all of those villains are now completely out of the story. But Shield Guy, we could have fought him when we were rescuing the Scions. That could have been when we fought him. Gun Lady? How about she comes and tracks us down? Actually, no. Here's one. Gun Lady chases after us and hunts us down, after we watch Ultima Weapon obliterate the primals. Crazy guy? How about basically we fight him as we approach the final area? Right there, I've now spread them out, so you're not fighting Shield Guy and then basically immediately jumping into fighting Gun Girl, and then immediately jumping into fighting Crazy Guy, and then you immediately fight the main Emperor dude, Dong Zhuo. You know, they're spaced out, and they would fit in those spots. It would make more sense to you in context of Final Fantasy that they be spread out. Like Final Fantasy 4, I think it is. The Elemental Lords. You don't fight all 4 of them one right after another. Might be 6. It's one of the 2 of them. I don't remember right now. I have been awake for a very long time and my brain is fudge. Oh, I don't need to pull it. But either way, it's one of those 2 games. Like, they're spaced out. Literally one of them you fight almost at the beginning of the game. Like, I'm actually curious about this now, so I'm gonna do a big no-no and text while driving, technically. Yeah, Final Fantasy IV. I was right. The Elemental Archfiends, who all have their own personalities, who all have a lot more character than the main villains of A Realm Reborn do. Like, this is why I have a problem when people say, oh, well, it's a story first. It's like, you know, or, oh, it's more of a, you know, it's more of a Final Fantasy game than an MMO. It's like, well, I'm not seeing it. Like, you get about as much story in the first 10 minutes of Final Fantasy III as you do in the first 6 hours of Final Fantasy XIV. Like, no joke, you get basically the exact same amount of relevant story information. And that's basically from an NES game. You know, back before they decided story was something people actually would want. They dump on you very quickly that you're the hero, you're the warrior of light, and you're going to save the world. Hell, even using Fire Emblem as an example. Game series not exactly known for being quick with its story. In the opening 20 minutes of Fire Emblem Echoes, which, keep in mind, is a retelling of I believe, an SNES game. Might have been NES. And is pretty faithful. It's pretty spot on. You're given literally more story than Final Fantasy XIV gives you in the first 6 hours. You know more about the world of Echoes and your character and the relevance of these other characters in the first 20 minutes of Echoes than you know of those same topics in 14 in the first 6 hours. Honestly, that could probably be stretched even further because, like, oh god. A little too fast. Yeah. Like, I honestly, excluding the very first Final Fantasy game, because that game, there really isn't a story. There's one there, but there's very little. But excluding that, I honestly challenge someone to find me a Final Fantasy game, excluding the very first one, and probably also 11, that has as little story as 14 does in A Realm Reborn. That's as slow as A Realm Reborn. That has combat that's as unengaging as 14 does. Because that's another problem with 14, is the gameplay sucks. And I imagine it's just the tank, because as mentioned, Blue Mage was fun. Blue Mage felt good. Too bad Blue Mage is locked to level 70 and lower, and, you know, basically doesn't matter. And even though it's been in the game longer than a lot of the newer classes they've added, is, you know, hasn't really seen much work or effort put into it. And, like, I get a lot of the people that really want to defend 14 really want to defend it because they're so heavily monetarily invested into the game. I mean, like, this friend I know, this person I know that plays 14, they have played that game basically non-stop for, I think, going on 3-4 years. Probably more, let's be real. I just haven't really kept track. That is a lot of money. Especially where in that time, they've bought every expansion new. So you gotta tack on all that extra cost of buying basically every expansion individually. Let me even just do some rough. Just some rough math. $15 a month. 12 months in a year. That's $180 a year. Even at 4 years, that is basically $720 of just subscription fees. If we tack on the, basically $40 per expansion, let's just be generous and say they only paid for 4 expansions. So I think there's 5 or 6 of them. But let's say 4. 4 at $40. So that's an extra $160. And then you add basically the 25 for the base game. And right there is $905. And that's rough. Like, that's rough math. That's not the actual amount. Because let's be honest, the actual amount is actually higher. Because, that $25 initial investment. And once again, this is Canadian dollars. To any of you Americans watching who play 14 and are like, but the game only costs this. Yeah, it costs about 25 Canadian. Canadian dollars are not equal to American dollars. Just because they're both called dollars does not make them equal. I wish they were. That would make our currency a whole lot better. But, you gotta add tax on that. And the province I'm in is a 15% tax. Even that subscription fee would have taxes on it. So you have to take that, basically, $905 and multiply it by 1.15. Which I will do the first moment I can. And we come to a grand total of $1,040.75 spent at least by this person I know who plays 14. To play 14. This person has criticized me for having spent... I think I spent around $250 on World of Warships. Over multiple years. Can you see why I am very much in the camp of a lot of the people who share this person's mindset are probably just so heavily monetarily invested in the game that they don't want to admit it could be bad or it could have flaws, and that these are probably the people that are screaming from the rooftops about how great 14 is. Like, congratulations. You, over 4 years, have paid for the electric bill of the entire server cluster for a year, basically. By yourself. Like... Which is also why I hate the argument that, oh, well, they need to charge the subscription because servers are expensive. I mean, servers are kind of expensive, but not as expensive as people think they are. Especially as time has gone on. Server costs have gone down over time. They're actually quite affordable, and let's be real, most companies are probably barely paying anything for their servers. Because even the Final Fantasy XIV server is probably part of a bigger data center. It is one server of probably hundreds that are within the same building. At every location, they have a server cluster. They basically probably have their rack. Or their couple of racks. And they probably rent that space for, $100-ish a month, $100, $200. And then they pay the power bill. They supply all the hardware themselves, and there you go. Like, why do you think all these random freaking Minecraft server hosts just appeared? A lot of which offer free servers. Like, it's really not hard to pay for a server these days. And based on when the Final Fantasy XIV servers were made, and the fact that they're dealing with login queues, apparently, even right now, that tells me that my old computer, if I were to take the motherboard and CPU, get a good amount of RAM, it's got 4 slots, so let's get 4 16 or 32 gigs RAM sticks. It would have to be ECC RAM, and that CPU, I believe, supports ECC. I don't know if the motherboard does, but we'll ignore that for the time being. But, 4 32s, that's 128 gigs of RAM. Get a decent little workstation graphics card just for a display out, and just display in general, because the CPU doesn't have integrated graphics. And I could turn my old computer into a server that's about as powerful as the 14 servers. Like, commercial hardware is as powerful, if not more, than those servers probably are. Based on the fact that, they're really struggling. And, like, I know the argument would be, oh, but there's so many people playing. It's like, okay. Okay. EVE Online. Very, very popular MMO for modern standards. Routinely has triple digits of players online. Not triple digits, 6 digits. Bleh. Triple thousands. Which may not sound like a huge amount, but that's online at once. On one server. EVE Online is one big server with a lot of nodes, but it's one big server that almost never has a login queue. The only queues you tend to run into are for the individual nodes. And even then, most of those are gone by now. Like, once upon a time, it was kind of difficult to get into JITAS to go do your trading. That being the most popular trade system in the entire game. Now it's trivial, and there's more people in that system than at most times through that game's history outside of protests. Like, and CCP does not have anywhere near the funding that Square Enix has. Because they're not Square freaking Enix. You know, multi-million-dollar company. Well, hundreds of million-dollar company. Probably close to billion-dollar company. If not over billion. I don't actually know how much Square Enix is worth. It's a lot. And it's a hell of a lot more than CCP is worth. So if they can do it, what's Square's excuse? I mean, hell, World of Warcraft is bigger than Final Fantasy. And I have not heard of World of Warcraft having login queues. They might, and I've just never heard of it. Outside of, like, big login events, like, probably update days, they probably have login queues, maybe. Once again, I've never heard of it. Hear all the time about 14 having login queues. Like, to me, it honestly just seems like Square Enix and the Final Fantasy XIV team just don't see a problem with these things. And I can't blame them. I mean, if I was in charge of one of the most played MMOs on the market, no, I probably wouldn't see much of an issue with these problems either. Because, well, hey, people are playing the game. They're obviously content. Oh, god damn it. Do you want to go, truck? Jeez. So I can get into the frickin' lane for the stupid wait station? They aren't even weighing. They're just driving right on through. You want to go, truck? So I can start picking up speed. Like, this is kind of what I'm getting at when I made mention of it, like, quite a few streams ago at this point, that I literally have the rough draft for my thoughts on the 1 to 60 experience in Final Fantasy XIV. Not 1 to 60, 1 to 50. That's so stupidly long that it would probably be close to a 2-hour video. Like, I have a lot of thoughts on 14. as someone who has played a lot of MMOs. And basically all of those MMOs to the end game. There are only a small handful of MMOs that I can't say I've gotten to the end game of. One of which is RuneScape. And that's only because I don't feel like selling my soul for the next 2 years to grind 99. You know, get a max cape. RuneScape is a relaxing game for me. I don't really want to spend that much time on it. Same as I haven't gotten to the end game of Tibia. That's mostly because I played RuneScape, and I liked RuneScape more. So, you know, I just played RuneScape instead of Tibia. Let's see. Angels Online, I never got to the end game of that one. A lot of that was more so just because, well, I only had so long to play games in a day, and I chose to play Tales of Pirates instead of Angels Online. That's really it. Music's paused. Thank you, YouTube. Yes, I am still watching. And then there's one slightly more recent MMO, at least recent that I've played it, that I didn't get to the end game of. And that's because I didn't want to invest the money into buying the end game, and that was Lord of the Rings Online. Which, quite honestly, is the MMO I probably should have just played instead of 14. Because it's janky old, it's what I was looking for. And from what I did play of it, it was a lot better gameplay-wise. Like, I know I ramble and rant about 14s a lot, but it's truly because I want to like the game. I want it to be better. It's kind of in the same sort of camp as with when it comes to, please don't tell me I'm gonna have to pull it. God damn it. I just did that. It's kind of in the same camp as, like, with computer hardware. This way, I think. Yeah, no, not this way. Basically, you don't want a company to win. You want them all to be doing well. You don't want one of them to be better than the rest, or to lag behind the rest. I take that same mentality into games. I don't want a game to be better than every other game. That's not helpful to anybody. I want them all to be good. So when I can easily pull examples of other MMOs that do things that 14 does better than it, well, that's areas that they need to improve. Or at least they should improve. Honestly, at this point, I don't think there's... Gameplay-wise, I don't think there is much improvement they can do without completely reworking basically all of their classes. Which they're not gonna do. There's no money in that. I almost crashed into that bus. God, why is everyone going so slow? But I mean, like, if they just, you know, effectively removed the global cooldown from the Paladin, for example, that would probably make the Paladin a bit too powerful. Unless they then made everybody more powerful. Honestly, I don't know why they ever thought that global cooldown was a good idea, instead of just an MP cost. But, you know... That is actually something in my, in my thoughts of the 1 to 50 grind. I actually took every Paladin skill from level 1 to 50 and basically changed their cost. I was using my brakes. They weren't braking. And for the most part, what I did was I gave everything an MP cost. There are some skills that maintained most of their original, you know, most of the current, you know, cooldown and bonuses. A lot of the Paladin skills I not only gave an MP cost to, but made stronger. And from even some of the most recent changelogs, it seems Square agrees that a lot of the Paladin skills are weak. Because they literally... Oh, the bird's about to... Because, like, the most recent patch, they gave damage buffs to some of the Paladin skills. Which, I mean, yeah, that's great. Damage is something, but... You know what would be a bigger boost to the Paladin's damage? You're throwing away that global cooldown. That would be the biggest boost to his damage output. Or their damage output. But, you know, if they do that, then the Gunbreaker won't be the DPS tank anymore. Unless they also get rid of the Gunbreaker's global cooldowns. In which case, I imagine then the Gunbreaker would be taking over the DPS's role. Because, you know, from everything I've heard about the Gunbreaker, it's kind of the best of both worlds already. Like, it has good DPS for a tank. Not so much for a DPS, but for a tank. And it also has basically all of the same tanking properties as the other tanks. Thus making it basically the best tank. Because as long as the tank can stay alive, the one that's best will be the one that puts out the most damage that can stay alive. And based on various Final Fantasy XIV tier lists I've seen, the Gunbreaker is the best tank. For that exact reason. It puts out the most damage and stays alive. The Paladin is the absolute worst tank because it puts out the least damage and stays alive because they all stay alive. Though, there is one very simple change that could be made to the Paladin that would probably overnight turn it into just the best tank. Change the 20% damage buff to a party buff. Now instead of just the Paladin dealing 20% more damage, the Paladin's party deals 20% more damage. Now suddenly the Paladin would probably be used in every party. And fundamentally, it wouldn't change the Paladin at all. The Paladin itself would not change. Everyone else would get buffed if there's a Paladin. It's probably not always going to be a Paladin. Like, it's little things like that. I mean, like, hell, imagine if that was the Paladin's whole thing. Like, imagine if rather than the Paladin getting a 35% damage reduction skill, if the Paladin instead got, like, a 30% damage reduction to the party skill. You see where I'm going here with these Paladin suggestions. Turn the Paladin into a party buffer. You know, like most Paladins tend to be. Yeah, I want to do another job. Hey, this one's taking me back to California. Yeah, screw it, I'll do this one. Or, here's another thing you could do to alter the paladin, but also fundamentally not change the paladin itself. How the paladin itself performs. Take that 35% defend damage reduction skill and give it the extra effect of, say, making the party, I don't know, let's say, move 20% faster for its duration. Paladin ain't moving. Paladin's standing still for the most part. And even then, that's, basically, I think that skill lasts 20 seconds, so that's effectively just applying the movement speed buff to the entire party. For 20 seconds. Which would be very situational and probably not terribly helpful. But it would, it would give the paladin an identity. Something it sorely lacks. I mean, as I've said many times, one of the first things I would have done to the paladin, one of the first skills I would have had the paladin learn, level 30 when you become a paladin, your very first skill, Cure. Because, you're a paladin. You heal and tank. That's your job. You heal the wounded and you prevent damage from reapplying to them. Like that's the paladin's thing. In every other game. In 14, the paladin just deals damage, and then deals damage, and deals damage, and then most of the way through the level experience, you get a heal. Like, what? I mean, I suppose at this point, given the level cap is 90, and you learn the cure spell at 58, you're a little over halfway through your levels. And probably decently soon, you'll be only just a little over halfway through your total levels. But, like, the paladin does not feel like a paladin. And that could change if they gave him, say, party buffs and a cure spell a lot sooner. And maybe other white magics. Like, imagine if at level 30, the Paladin got Cure 1. And then at, say, level 40, the Paladin got Medica 1. And then at level 50, the Paladin got, I don't know, Raise. You know, white magic. Paladin stuff. Oops. I'm actually seeing if I can, Jeep, what are you doing? There's no way you didn't... There's no way you accelerate slower than I do. There's a stop sign there, wasn't there? That's what it was. Which means technically, yes, it did accelerate slower than I do. But like, here's an example of a former paladin, like a paladin in the Final Fantasy series. Cecil from Final Fantasy IV gets Cure, Sight, Libra, Protect, Cura, which would be Cure 2, Teleport, Shell, Asuna, and Raise. So they know what a paladin does. They've done this before. Maybe I should play through Final Fantasy IV. Or 6. I think I'll do 4. I'll save 6, because it is the best. Don't want to start with the absolute best. I mean, technically I haven't. I started with, honestly, something that I'd put fairly low in a tier list of Final Fantasy games. I honestly feel more motivated to do that than I do to actually play more Final Fantasy XIV. Which is kind of sad. I say it's kind of sad. No, that's really sad. Like, I should not have to hype myself up to play a game. Though I should actually go and grab some more coffee because I am out of drink. So I will be back in a moment. I return. Yeah, I think I will actually do a stream series of Final Fantasy IV. I also want to do a video series at some point, because I want to do a more... Like, my video series, I want to transition from the more casual ones I do now, with, like, Monster Hunter, to more walkthrough-esque, because that's what I've always wanted to do. Like, that's the kind of, like, Let's Play I kind of wanted when I really got into Let's Playing. Because that's the kind I enjoy watching. Like, I enjoy casual stuff, too. But, like, if I'm looking for a playthrough of something, I tend to want a more walkthrough-y type than someone casually playing who's probably missing half of the content. But streaming allows me to do literally both. Also, one thing I do feel like I have to mention about Final Fantasy XIV that just kind of shows Square's either, at least the 14 teams, I suppose, inexperience at MMOs. That little sprout next to my character's name, yeah, that sprout's not going away anytime soon. Because the new player indicator does not go away until you have finished the last mission of the second to last expansion released, So not Endwalker, the one that came out just before it. Or that came out before it. And played on that character for 300 hours. Yeah, that person that has fulfilled those requirements is firmly not a new player anymore. They haven't been for probably around 150 hours. Like, a new player indicator is to indicate just that, a new player. Which is where, if you're going to have a quest requirement to get rid of it, have a quest requirement. If you're going to have an hour requirement, have an hour requirement. To have both is a little silly and kind of misses the point. And if you're going to have an hour requirement, it probably shouldn't be more time than most people are probably willing to put into a game. And note, I'm not saying most Final Fantasy XIV players are willing to put in, because clearly a lot of them are more than willing to put in way more time than any sane person really should. But the average person, you know, the people who haven't played the game, or possibly have and then quit, which greatly outnumber the people who play the game. This will probably be my last delivery for this stream. Because, I mean, it has been almost... Well, it's been over 2.5 hours now. By the time I finish this delivery, it'll probably be like 3 hours and 20-ish minutes. So, you know. Now the only thing is to decide what version of Final Fantasy IV I want to do. So I could do the Sprite one or the 3D one. I should see which one's harder and do that. I mean, no matter what, I also want to do After Years, so I might honestly just do the PSP one. Give me an excuse to dig out my my PSP and its capture device. Or I could just play it on Official hardware. Ah. I mean, ultimately, you can't prove I didn't make the copy I'd play. Return to Interstate. I'd prefer to return to Monkey. Freaking Pauline's theme. The song that could probably give a lot of people who've played Smash Brothers PTSD. Honestly, though, that spirit. Listen to the lyrics of the song. It's telling you what you have to do. You need to jump up. Don't be scared. Like, you need to basically have no fear and just go for it. That is how you beat that spirit. Fire Emblem. Oh man, Fire Emblem Fates. I thought about possibly doing Fates for the channel. But, Citra doesn't like it for some reason. And I don't know why. Because it worked just fine on my old computer. And now Citra hates it. And as mentioned, my 3DS can't record off of it, so I kinda need Citra. The game just kinda crashes. Like a lot. And the main reason why I even wanted to do Fates for the channel is one, well, there's actually a couple reasons. One, I've actually never beaten the game. I always get kind of bored and stop, which is why I want to have an actual goal. You know, to actually beat it, have like a reason to. But also, the same kind of with Awakening. I want to tear it apart with examples as I play. Especially because Fates kept the same stupid... Oh man, all of your characters have children and they somehow fight alongside you bullshit from Awakening. Which, can I just say, Awakening's children's system is weird and kind of uncomfy. Like, okay, there's a species in Fire Emblem called Manteke. They're dragons. They live for an absurdly long amount of time. And, you know, they basically gotta be in their hundreds to be considered a 10-year-old in human terms. Right? There is a Manteke in Awakening. That's... I actually don't know her age. Her age doesn't so much matter. She... God damn it. She can be paired with any of the male characters and have a child that time travels roughly 50 years, if even that, to fight alongside you, whom you can pair with any of the male characters and create a child. That's uncomfy. At least I'm fairly sure she can be paired. Because I think some of the male characters have children tied to them specifically. Either way, you can still pair her with an adult. You know, this literal child. And people question why I'm not a big fan of Awakening systems. They're just uncomfy. I should pull off and get repaired. I don't want to, but after that van blindsiding me, it's kind of a necessity now. I may as well grab fuel while I'm at it. So it is only a matter of time before my truck starts turning itself off. Actually, no, it's my wheels that are the most damaged. So I actually probably would have been pretty fine, because the engine and transmission were pretty good. Not great, but... Oh, music paused again. Of course it did. Why wouldn't it? I was almost blindsided by that truck, right after repairing. That would have really sucked. Getting lots of fuel. Do. Alright, back to the highway. I should really turn the music back on. I love how after a few of those prompts, you literally just have to go back to the tab. And the prompt will be there, but YouTube will just start playing the music anyway. It's like they know. They know it's frustrating. As much as I should, I will not be sleeping after I finish this stream. I will be staying up for a while. Because my goal... I don't know if I'll actually manage this, but my goal is to stay up until around 6-ish. Set an alarm for exactly 8 hours later. And then go to bed. And then try to force myself out of bed whenever I wake up. And then tomorrow try to go to bed around 7-ish and set an alarm for 8 hours later. Until I get to the point where I'm happy with my sleep schedule. The issue is insomnia. Because that's basically what happened today. Though it's insomnia caused by the sleep bank collecting its debts. Which causes more debts from the sleep bank. Which then causes more of the sleep bank collecting their debts, and thus cause more insomnia. Because, like, the last time I went to sleep was around, like... God, when was it? I think it was around, like, a midnight. And from there, I slept until, like, 7 p.m. Like, I basically lost a day. But that also meant that I gained a day. Actually, no, I know what it was. I was awake until around, like, 5 in the morning, and then slept until 7 p.m. That's what it was. I'm remembering now. Because that's just what I do sometimes. And that's what is called the sleep bank collecting its debt. Because ultimately, whether you sleep when you're supposed to or not, the sleep bank always collects its debts. Always. So, you know, if you should sleep 8 hours, you only sleep 5. Well, the next time you sleep, you might sleep 8.5 or 9. In my body's case, I would sleep 10, 11. Because my sleep debt collectors like getting all of their debt all at once. They've had enough of my shit, and they'd rather just have all the debt, all of what they're owed. Cedar City? It sounds like a lumber store. Yeah, you just gotta go to Cedar City, get all your cedar needs. Your cedar brain. I'm very tired. But I think I have ultimately decided at least what Final Fantasy IV I'm gonna play. I think I'll do the PSP version because the PSP version has the After Years included. And I want to do the After Years as well. I should also, at some point, go through my YouTube and make a playlist of my Final Fantasy XIV streams. Because they're kind of a series at this point. I think my guesstimate is going to be wrong for when I arrive with this last load. I do love how this game basically gives you the perfect demonstrator as to why the people that speed really aren't doing themselves any favors. Because that, like, Tuesday 6 a.m., that's my arrival time. At the current speed I'm going with the distance left. If I was going 113, it wouldn't make any difference. It's still going to be basically 6 in the morning. I'd have to be going around 140 to shave off a couple minutes. And that's on a basically 5.5 hour in-game estimate for arrival time. Like, and that's if I could maintain this 100 kilometers an hour the entire way. I'm not going to be able to do that. If I slow down more, ain't going to change too much. Like, this is the kind of game that saying this kind of thing is actually very fitting for. Like, there is no reason whatsoever to speed. At least, unless there's an emergency. Which I suppose gives a reason. An emergency. You being late to work because you overslept, or you just simply didn't leave on time because you just were like, screw it. I'll just... voice crack. I'll just pedal to the metal and go like 80 in a 30 zone. You know. That ain't an emergency. That's you needing to invest in better time management skills. Case in point, when I did work, I was almost always at least a half an hour early. Of which I know there's a lot of people who are watching, like, oh, I ain't that excited to get to work. I wasn't excited to get to work. I wanted to make sure I was there on time. With plenty of time to assess the shit show I was walking into. Now, a lot of me being early was also because I would go to work with my sister, and she's always that early. If I had full control over when I got there myself, I probably would have showed up about 10 minutes early. Because that's all the time I needed to assess everything. But even then, that is still 10 minutes early. That means I am leaving the house, giving myself enough time to get there 10 minutes early. A lot of the people I've seen argue for, you know, or more, I wouldn't say argue, more actually just speed. A lot of those people, basically, you know, they start work at 8, they leave the house at like 8:05. It's a 10-minute drive. Well, not 8:05. 7:55, and it's a 10-minute drive. You know. I mean, hell, at the store I worked at, there was actually some people who were like that. One of which was my operator. He was quite notorious for not showing up on time. And then he would just stay later because, you know, you show up 15 minutes late, just stay an extra 15 minutes. Bam! Or you could work the time you're scheduled and just show up on time. But I just know, given how Facebook is, that it's going to start throwing shit like that at me again soon. It's like clockwork that it happens. Same with various just wrong cooking things. It always throws stuff like that at me. Because I have this fun thing called knowledge how to cook. Things frustrate me when they're cooked wrong. And this is a thing that's saying that I can imagine is going to be very controversial. You don't need to leave a steak raw for it to be juicy. You just need to turn your temperature down. Like, that's... Quite honestly, that is something that even a lot of restaurants mess up on. But restaurants at least have the excuse and justification of... They got basically one grill. It's gotta be at temperature for the majority of things. Steaks, you don't want high temperatures. High temperatures are what dries them out. You want a good medium, low temperature. Not searing temperature. You want a good medium, low. Cook them in a decent amount of butter. Keep them nice and lubricated with the butter. And you will have a tender... I needed to turn there. A tender, well-done steak. Tender and juicy. And I know this because I've done it. Decent amount of trial and error, but I got there. Like in a restaurant, sure. Order your rare, medium rare, raw, whatever. But that's because a restaurant can't cook it properly. And any restaurant's chef that claims they can cook a steak properly on the restaurant's grills are lying to themselves. You can't. Because you have to change the temperature. And changing the temperature means you're now not cooking the majority of things properly. Unless that restaurant has a separate grill for steaks. Then sure. That chef could do it properly. But the thing is, a lot of restaurant chefs, and this is, this is why I know it's controversial, is because a lot of, properly trained chefs, they went to probably a handful of cooking classes. Basically swear that, basically a barely, just barely seared raw steak is how it's properly cooked. But it's not. That's the shortcut. It's not proper. Can't even overly say it's an advanced technique, because any idiot could sear a steak. I mean, that's honestly the one thing with those posts that tends to piss me off the most with the whole steak thing is a lot of people claiming to be chefs, and I don't look into them enough to actually know if they are or not, that basically throw around the, oh, well, if you come into my restaurant and order a medium, like a well done, you know, you're going to get the low end cuts, and you're, you know, I might just refuse it because I'm not going to waste the steak. It's like, my man, it's only wasted if it isn't used. For one. And for two, if I ever went to a restaurant, ordered a product, and then found out that that restaurant gave me a subpar example of that product because of how I wanted it cooked, I would be taking that restaurant to court for not giving me what I paid for. Like, that is a dangerous game to play, because that restaurant owner is going to take it out on the chef. Though the thing recently that Facebook has been trying to rage bait me into reacting to is a return to delivery drivers basically, you know, quote-unquote shaming people who don't give a tip or not enough tip. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the chef. Like, call me crazy, but when I order, say, a pizza, if I don't know the pizza place, no, the driver doesn't get a tip until, like, the pizza arrives. Because I don't know the pizza place. And until that pizza is in my hands, and I can feel warmth or lack of warmth through the bottom of the cardboard box, I ain't giving a tip. Because the tip to the driver is based on, in my opinion anyway, how much they get should be based on how fast it was, and if the food is still hot. So, like, one of the things I saw was, which also, this is a lawsuit waiting to happen kind of deal. This delivery driver was basically blasting the customer's pizza with the air conditioning in their car. One, AC units are filthy. They probably blasted a lot of bacteria onto that food. And if that customer gets food poisoning, the pizza place is probably going to look at who delivered the pizza. And they'll know who did it. And they will probably take out, you know, basically direct any legal action or legal compensation towards the delivery driver. So that's a dangerous game to be playing right there. But also, you're a pizza delivery driver. You're probably gonna get a cash tip. I get you can't punish the customer if, you know, you've already given them their food and they don't give you a tip. But presumably also, given, you know, with things like DoorDash and Uber Eats and all those, the drivers get to pick their deliveries. So presumably, a delivery driver in this position of no tip, and yet they're still making the delivery, is employed by whatever place they're delivering for. Thus, they're getting paid for the trip anyway. Which is something that I've actually looked into before when it comes to Americans and their tipping culture. And what I'm about to say does vary greatly based on what state you're in, who you work for. You know, there's a lot of variables here. But, on average, US-wide, hourly wage for service clerks, you know, waiters, waitresses, is actually higher than minimum wage. By about $2-3 an hour. These jobs also tend to have built into their contract that any tips you make are weighed against your hourly wage. Basically saying, if you get a tip, you're not actually making any extra money. If you report the tip anyway. Which a lot of restaurants, you would probably get fired for not reporting your tips. So realistically, that service worker that's complaining so much about you not tipping them, they were getting paid just fine. They just wanted extra money. Because the fun thing about that, it works against your hourly, is that only applies so much. After a certain point, your hourly doesn't go any lower, and you can still get tips. A lot of places, the hourly goes down to like $4 an hour, but it will not go lower than that. So, basically, if you get enough tips, well, suddenly you're making more money now. Which is also probably why these workers, who, you know, complain so much about customers not tipping and such, don't actually want to, like, unionize or do anything about their low wages, is because they're not getting low wages. They would actually probably take a pay cut if that happened. But that's enough rambling and ranting for me. I'm going to end the stream off here because I'm just kind of too tired to continue. Thank you all very much for watching, and hopefully I shall see you back here tomorrow for less ranting and raving and more playing games that aren't a truck simulator. See you all then.